So this is basically an overview of the relationships we discussed. Plus sign will reference positive effect, negative sign will reference negative effect, and a zero will reference a neutral effect. So these are all going to be expressed as one species and the other in no specific order. So in neutralism, the first species is going to have no effect, and so is the second. This is the relationship where two species live closely together, but they really don't affect each other in any positive or negative way. In competition, you're going to have both species harmed or negatively affected. Remember, in order to for competition to occur, the organisms are competing for a resource. So that basically describes a negative relationship. In commensalism, one species will benefit and the other is indifferent or gets nothing out of the relationship. Like, for example, the shark and the remora. The remora gets food from the shark and the shark is indifferent of its presence. In amensalism, one species is negatively affected and the other one's indifferent. So this is like the strange relationship where one organism actually harms its symbiotic partner and gets nothing from it. Mutualism, both positive, both species benefit from each other. In predation, one species is negatively affected while the other one is positive. This would be the prey and this would be the predator. In parasitism is like predation. The difference is a parasite lives on its host or lives symbiotically with its other organism, but it's one negative, one positive. Evolution. Evolution, basically, when you see the word change, you automatically think of evolution, and the change is within a population over a long period of time. What changes is basically genetic or genes frequency or genetic mutation within a population, and reproduction must occur for evolution to take place. This is an image of micro versus macro. Basically, microevolution is a theory and macroevolution is just a hypothesis. And here's a picture of one from the other. This is a picture of macro and this is a picture of micro. Basically, micro is the type of evolution we're going to study in class, which is what scientists have been able to prove does happen. The changes within a species can occur due to some environmental conditions and leads to variety of traits within a species. Like, for example, here you have color and size variation. This scientists believe did happen. There's an evolution from one species to another type of species over time. In this case, it would be a lizard to a bird. They call that macroevolution or large-scale evolution. And this is a hypothesis that actually, scientists believe did occur based on fossil evidence. So certain things I want you to know about the history of evolution. Darwin is who we reference as the father of evolution. He basically traveled the world and did discoveries of different types of species or populations, but he did most of his studies in the Galapagos Islands, where he studied what we know as Darwin's finches and the variety of finches based on niches and environmental conditions. He did write a book called The Origin of Species, and you have to be familiar with that book as well. And he also traveled on the Beagle. That's the name of his ship. So we're going to talk about types of evolution, and I'm only going to talk about one in this video. And the first type of evolution is basically evolution by natural selection. It's what you most commonly see happen when evolution takes place or microevolution takes place. This scenario that I'm showing you is not necessarily has to happen in this order. This is like a full description of natural selection, starting with overpopulation. So if you have in an environment more species than can survive, the result is there's going to be limited resources. Limited resources will lead, as we mentioned in previous slides, to competition or migration. But if evolution is going to occur, there must be variety of traits within the population. And if if you reference, like, for example, your classroom, you see variety of traits within your species, which is humans. You see different hair color, different stamina, you see different heights, ability of acquiring knowledge. These are all variety of traits. Some of these traits are going to be favorable for a specific condition, and that is the advantage. And with that advantage, you're going to have that specific trait of an organism survive and reproduce, and they will move on. This is called survival of the fittest. The fittest doesn't necessarily mean the strongest. I'm going to add that to this video. Not necessarily. It could be the smartest, the fastest. It could even be the weakest or the dumbest. It depends on what is the favorable trait for a specific condition. Now, there's 3 types of natural selection. We're going to look at these curves, and basically the dotted line curve is what we call the original population, which is like a fictitious population of a perfect bell-shaped curve or a perfect scenario with variety of organisms. In this type of evolution, the population, this is called directional selection, the population shifts in one direction being the extreme. It can also shift in the opposite direction, which would be this way, and that's still directional selection. We'll go to the next slide to look at another picture. This would be right here, directional selection. So this is the original population, which consists of a perfectly balanced environment with light blue beetles, medium blue beetles, and dark blue. And over time, all that's left is dark blue beetles. Something happened in the environment that led to this. And a good explanation would be, in this perfect scenario, you had a variety of colors of flowers, and these beetles were all able to camouflage within the flowers. So we had light blue, medium, and dark blue. And over time, all that was left was dark blue flowers. So these beetles became a target to their predators, and eventually only one survived. It could also go the other way, which means the light blue beetles would have been the survival. That still describes directional selection. In disruptive, the extremes on the curve are the survivals. The average trait kind of disappears. And if you look at this word, disruptive has a U in the word, and this is a U-shaped curve when you look at it. So try to remember that when you study. Here's an example of disruptive, this third curve right here. In disruptive, again, perfect scenario of original population. Something happens over time. So in this case, light blue flowers and dark blue flowers dominated. So the average species, which would be right here, the middle man, disappears, and only the 2 extremes survive. U-shaped curve. In stabilizing, the word says it all. The average trait survives. This is the original population, the dotted line, and my average trait survives, and the other extremes somehow vanish. This is the picture of stabilizing. You had your perfect bell-shaped curve, and only the average or the middleman survives the environmental condition. So to sum it up for you as natural selection, here you see a variety of traits: light color, medium color, dark. Obviously, in this case, the average colored species was naturally selected by its environment, survived, reproduced, and evolved over time.